Baseball, America's favorite pastime. Through the ages, many teams have come and have gone. And one team has stood out from the rest. The San Francisco Giants.
The Giants organization originated in New York and won 5 world titles there. But in 1957, ticket income was so low that they decided to move west to San Francisco to start anew in 1958. In their first season in San Francisco, the Giants played in Tiny Seal Stadium, which was former home to a minor league team, meaning it would never be big enough to hold a major league team. Subsequently, in 1959, their next season, the Giants moved to brand new Candlestick Park. In the 40 years that the Giants played at Candlestick, it would be infamously known for its harsh winds, which knocked down fly balls, making it harder or extremely difficult to hit home runs. After only 4 years in San Francisco, the Giants found themselves in a pennant race with their hated rivals, the Los Angeles Dodgers. Back then, there were no playoffs. The top teams from both leagues, National League and American League, would face off in the World Series. An amazing comeback had taken place over the course of the Giants' season. They had clawed and scratched their way back from the bottom of the standings to get to where they were. Now, tied for the lead in the National League, the Giants prepared to face off against the Dodgers. Whoever won this game would go straight to the World Series. In a thrilling comeback, which involved a 4-run rally in the ninth, the Giants beat the Dodgers and prepared to play the Yankees in the 1962 World Series. It was a seesaw battle in the World Series, and both teams traded wins through the first 6 games. In the end, the Giants lost Game 7 and the series, even though they made a valiant effort to win in the bottom of the ninth of Game 7.
Here's the Giants' fun fact.
1962, the Dodgers had one of the fastest players around, Maury Wills. Maury would steal tons of bases. So, when the Dodgers came to Candlestick Park, the Giants had a plan to stop Maury's stealing. The manager of the Giants ordered the grounds crew to overwater the area around first base so that Maury couldn't get a head start when he was trying to steal. The plan worked, and Maury was unable to steal a base at Candlestick, and momentum seemed to have shifted in the race for the pennant. After 1962, the Giants had a 17-year-long pennantless streak. They had many playoff teams, but none could achieve the ultimate goal, getting to a World Series. Finally, in 1989, the Giants made it to a World Series. They would be playing the Oakland Athletics. Because of that, this World Series would become forever known as the Battle of the Bay. At the beginning of Game 3, during introductions of the players and coaches, tragedy struck. One of the greatest earthquakes to ever hit the San Francisco Bay Area rocked the ballpark and postponed the World Series. Let's listen in to a TV broadcast of that horrible day.
Forward to the bottom of the 4th inning. Dave Parker barely, by inches, just misses a home run. Candy Maldonado with the hesitation, allowing Jose Canseco to score, and he fails to get Dave Parker at second base, so the Oakland A's take. I'll tell you what, we're having an earthquake.
After the game, inside Candlestick Park was a crazy sight. People were running about trying to escape the park, but outside, devastation reigned. Luckily, only 63 people died, but more than 3,700 were injured by the magnitude 6.3 earthquake. The Bay Bridge took a horrible blow. Many people thought that Major League Baseball should cancel the World Series, but in the end, even more people thought that baseball would bring the community together. So 10 days after the tragedy, the World Series resumed. Unfortunately for the Giants, who already had lost the first 2 games, their luck had not changed, and they lost the last 2 games, getting swept by the A's.
Here's another Giants fun fact.
In 1971, the Giants clinched the division on the last possible day of the season. On that same day, Tito Fuentes welcomed a brand new baby boy. He named his son Clinch in honor of the Giants clinching the division. Over the next 2 decades, not much Giant lore took place. In 2002, 13 years after 1989, and the horrible loss to the A's, the Giants made it back to the World Series. This time, they were playing another California-based team, the Anaheim Angels. The Giants had a ton of superstars on their team, including one of the most feared hitters to ever walk the earth, Barry Bonds. But more about him later. What matters about this World Series is that the Giants took a 3-2 lead into the 6th game of the series, and they took a lead late into the 6th game, and they lost the series. It was a humiliating loss for the Giants players, the coaches, and the fan base. This series loss, like the one in '89, was tough to get over, but we managed. Through the ages, the Giants have had many superstars to play for them. Let's take a look at some of the greatest. Juan Marichal was a great pitcher for the Giants, and he had an amazing career. One of the best statistics that he had was his 2,303 strikeouts throughout his career. He had an odd windup, which involved an extremely high leg kick preceding each pitch. Marichal's shining moment in his career was when he went 16 scoreless innings against one of the best pitchers in the game, who was at the twilight of his career, 42-year-old Warren Spahn. Marichal, who was in his 20s, was reported saying to his manager when he tried to take him out, "If that old man can pitch, I can pitch. I'm not coming out till he does." Regardless of what Barry Bonds did off the field, what he did on the field was pretty downright amazing. Barry's 762 home runs are the most ever hit by a major league player. He was an amazingly awesome player. He could also steal bases. He could be the greatest player of all time, but in my opinion, he's not. For those of you who don't already know, this is because Barry's records are tainted. Barry Bonds took steroids. Because of this, in my opinion, he could never be the greatest hitter ever. But since he was a great hitter, he must be included in my video. Willie Mays is, in my opinion, the greatest player ever. Greater than Barry Bonds, greater than Babe Ruth. This is because Willie was awesome. In his career, Willie hit 660 home runs. That's a lot. He had tons of RBIs, runs batted in, and he scored lots of runs. Willie could do it all, including play center field. Willie was amazing in the outfield, and he caught tons of balls. On April 30th, 1961, Willie had the greatest moment of his career. He became only the 9th player in the history of baseball to hit 4 home runs in a game. It was amazing. That is how great Willie was. Finally, after decades and decades of what-ifs and almosts, the Giants in 2010 put together a team for the ages and gave their fans torture through and through. They beat the Padres on the final day of the regular season to make it to the playoffs. In the National League Division Series, the Giants took it to 4 games to beat the Braves. In the National League Championship Series, the Giants went 6 and beat the Phillies. And finally, in the World Series, the Giants crushed Cliff Lee and the Rangers. The deciding blow that gave us the World Series was Edgar Renteria's game-winning homer in the top of the 7th inning. It was a truly historic victory, and it was the first time since 1954, when the Giants were still in New York, that they had won the World Series. After coming up short in 2011, the Giants made some changes in the offseason and they had a bigger and better team than 2011 at the start of 2012. But the best game all season happened on June 13th, 2012. On June 13th, 2012, Matt Cain pitched a first ever perfect game in the 128-year history of the Giants organization. It was superb. He tied the record for most strikeouts in a perfect game with 14. The closest Matt came to losing the perfect game was in the top of the 7th inning when Gregor Blanco made a diving catch on the warning track. In the end, it was an amazing game for an amazing man. Once again, in 2012, the Giants made it to the postseason. This time, they ran away with the division, and there was not really any torture regular season-wise. But in the National League Division Series, the Giants fell behind 2-0 before winning the final 3 to close out the series. In the National League Championship Series, the Giants fell behind 3-1 before winning the last 3 again to win the series. And finally, in the World Series, there was no falling behind, or losing games, or torture, or anything. The Giants won 4 straight games to sweep the Detroit Tigers and once again be the world champions of baseball. So that's it. That's history of the Giants in San Francisco. I hope you enjoyed my video and you liked learning so much about my all-time favorite sports team. Thank you.
Sergio Romo, Kimbo Mota. We're Giants at the plate, Miller's is adios, pelota. Let's get those black and orange World Series patches on their shoulder. It's a strikeout, Bambino, gotcha. Pablo Sandoval, a great big hand that homers over fences. Sandoval, he moves the team and so does Hunter Fences. Sandoval, he's blowing bubbles, making double places. Sandoval, Panda Sandoval. San Francisco, we got to go to the show. Said I could go. San Francisco, big boy Marco, with Guru, Ontario. Timmy, Barry, Ryan King will take his team all the way. Except Giant style. Giant style. Except Giant style.